Sean here with BaseMint Comics. It's Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. It's a little bit chillier than it normally is around here in August, so Hank and I are about to bundle up before we head up and pedal up to our shop to pick up our books this week. Hey, we're back from the ride, picking up our new comics at our shop, and full disclosure, this is actually, now it's Thursday. I've been trying to get these out Wednesday, but unfortunately life happens and some stuff, like a family emergency popped up yesterday, so that took my wife and I out for pretty much all of the evening until about 1 in the morning when we got home from running up north. But the good news is that this at least gave me the opportunity to last night when I was winding down to read a few of the issues. So this is what I picked up. Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe. I really enjoyed the one-shots that they were doing of this. I'm not the biggest Godzilla fan, nothing against it, just not. I remember my dad watching like Godzilla matinees on Saturdays with like my older brothers and sisters, but I was like too young and just wanted to like play with my toys and never really got back into it. But these have been a lot of fun and falls into the category of what I would call big dumb comics, which I am all about, because like the more absurd, the more fun they are. Next up is Psylocke number 10. Not exactly my favorite of the From the Ashes era. One of the things that I didn't like about the Krakoan era was them trying to make all of the villains, like everyone getting kind of a clean slate. I wasn't a big fan of. John Greycrow following the Mutant Massacre probably shouldn't be getting a clean slate. And I'm a bigger fan of Betsy than I am Quanon, so I wasn't exactly like, I pretty much buy into everything X-Men. I'm part of the problem. But it wasn't, it was like an okay series, but just, it's not like it was at the top of my stack to read every week. Up next is Exceptional X-Men. This is another title where I'm like, it has promise, but it sort of just isn't really doing it for me. I like the introduction of new X-Men characters, and I like it when it's kind of done organically and we kind of get them introduced, one by one. It's my like gateway point for New Mutants was like Generation X. That was like right when I was getting into comics. Like I'd gotten into comics a few years before, but that was my first like wave of New Mutants. X-Force was already established, like end of New Mutants, early X-Force was already established. So Generation X was like the first group of kids that I got introduced to. And I kind of liked them tying that into an event. Like we got introduced to one of the kids in each issue. And I just sort of liked the way that they did that. Next is Vision and Scarlet Witch. I'm a sucker for these characters. And I think Steve Orlando's been doing a really good job with that Scarlet Witch series. These have kind of been like offshoots of that. And it's been a fun mini. I like Vision. I like Scarlet Witch. So that's been good. Wolverine, I was like on the fence about this series, but the splash page, the like final page reveal of what was actually going on in the last issue really kept me going with this one. Then I picked up Imperial number 3. I'm a big Hickman fan, and there was some stuff in the Krakoan era that I was like really excited about that never got touched upon. I actually met Hickman in Chicago the day that the Krakoan era was announced, and I was at his table I just made it to his table right before he was getting up to go to the panel where they announced the Krakoan era and him taking over the X-Books. And I was getting an issue of his Avengers run signed, where it introduces the new Smasher, part of the Imperial Guard, wife to Cannonball. And I really loved that issue, and I love Shi'ar. Like, I'm not the biggest. I've like tried to dip my toes into Marvel Cosmic, like the Abnett and Lanning Annihilation stuff and Guardians. I like it, but my like bread and butter for Marvel Cosmic is always Shi'ar. Like, that's the X-Men cartoon, Claremont's run, all that stuff. Love the Shi'ar. So when I had him sign that issue, I was like, anything you can, like, I've heard rumors that you're taking over the X-Men, anything that you can give me, any, like, you want to, like, spill any secrets? And he just pointed at he flipped open the issue, pointed at the Imperial Guard, and was like, it's going to involve a lot of them. And so I was really excited about that. And then that seemed to, like, not ever manifest. When he was doing New Mutants, there was, like, some stuff with the Imperial Guard, like with the team, kind of when the book was split in two, where it was like he wrote some issues and somebody else wrote the other issues, like they traded off on arcs. It just never seemed to go anywhere. So I have high hopes for this. I've enjoyed the first two issues. I'm most excited for the Lilandra Xavier issue that's coming out, obviously. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. Now on to the three that I actually did read. Amazing Spider-Man, number 974. So we're getting close to 1,000. I really dig this cover of it being the Daily Bugle and having the article by Ben Urich. I've been enjoying Joe Kelly's run on this a lot. I didn't dislike any of the runs before this, but I've been digging this one a little bit more. So it's been good, and that made me pick up Black Cat number 1. Not super familiar with the character, but I've been doing this like reread of all the stuff that I have of the Marvel Universe, which I'm going to talk about at the end of the video. And I'm reading Jed MacKay's Avengers, and there was like a heist 2-part story that they had to do, and they like Kang recruited Black Cat, and it all had to do with like her, spoilers, it had to do with her like basically doing one last job with her dad. And at the time I've been reading Amazing Spider-Man from the beginning all the way through. And I had sort of just got to the point where Black Cat was introduced and the stuff with her father. And so the MacKay issues of Avengers like would not have been as good to me if I hadn't known that particular like tidbit of her really kind of getting into being a cat burglar because of her father, and like, so I just kind of enjoyed that. So I was definitely more excited to pick this up, and then happy that this like ties in basically note for note into the current Spider-Man run. So that's pretty good. So I dropped New Avengers in favor of adding this because New Avengers Thunderbolts wasn't doing anything for me. So now the book that I was most excited about was Marvel All-in-One Thing versus the Marvel Universe. To rope back around to my Big Dumb Comics thing about loving that. This is 50 splash pages of Ed McGuinness, and the story was super fun. It was like bright, kind of, you know, just like a good time. The twist like of why Ben is fighting the entire Marvel universe was really fun. So this was a ton of fun and exactly what I needed to read when I got home after all the craziness of yesterday. So I really enjoyed this. I was worried that the $7.99 price tag was not going to like live up to it, but it absolutely does. I have no problem paying $7.99 for 50 pages of splash pages by Ed McGuinness. And like I said, Ryan North is crushing it on Fantastic Four. One World Under Doom is great, and this is fantastic. So I would definitely, you know, check your couch cushions for some quarters and pick this one up. It was a lot of fun. And then while Henry was running around the store, that usually means that I have a couple extra minutes while I try to corral him out of the door for other stuff to catch my eyes. And one of the things that did was this back issue magazine, and number 161, and it's an all Mutant Mayhem issue. So it's all articles on different miniseries involving the X-Men, and it has one about Nightcrawler, the Nightcrawler miniseries, and it's written by my pal Doug Zuiza. So I was excited about that. When I saw that Doug wrote it, I was like, oh, I'll check that out, because then we will have something to talk about the next time we get together for lunch and talk about comics, because he's a writer for Back Issue Magazine. We met years back when we went to a shop together and hung out there. So those are the new books that I picked up that I'm pretty excited about this week. Like I said, love that Marvel all-in-one thing versus the Marvel Universe. And then, so I was thinking about, like, obviously, like, while I was thinking about what the channel was going to be before I started it up, I've ridden bikes to comic book stores ever since I got into comic books. That was how I would get to the store. When I first started out, pretty much every shop that I think I've ever shopped at in my area, I've tried to make sure was within biking distance. And by within biking distance, I mean, even to the shops that we go to now, Henry and I are biking, you know, it's like a 20-mile round trip, and I usually extend that a little bit so we can hit some parks for him. But my earliest memories of going to the comic book shop or riding my bike up to it, I lived in a little town that had a comic. I was at like one end of it, and the comic book shop was at the other, and so I'd bike there. If you're curious what that little town is, it was they used it as Woodsboro in Scream 4. So if you've ever seen Scream 4 and you're looking at the Woodsboro in Scream 4, that is where I grew up. So I was like, oh, you know, it'll be a day in the life thing of like me biking up to the comic book store and talking about my new books. But I've, for years now, been doing this. In 2022, I finished my Avengers run and my Fantastic Four run, and recently finished a Spider-Man run of like all of Amazing, all of Web, most of Spectacular, and what I'm missing of Spectacular is at like the very tail end, like 230 to 250, you know, like the very end of that, which would put me in like the late 90s. And I'm currently in January of 82 of the reread. And so then I was like, well, I've got all these back issues and I've been collecting for over 30 years, and I've been doing runs on Marvel stuff. So I was like, I will start with just everything. I'll read Fantastic Four, and when Spider-Man starts, X-Men starts, of what I have, I will I'll throw those in. So this is what I've read so far. I'm FF 61 to 81. I threw in the Strange Tales with Thing. I got like a collection of all the Strange Tales with Thing and the Human Torch. So when those fit in, I added those. Then when Spider-Man premiered, I threw in Spider-Man, started reading that month to month. In the 90s, there was a series called Untold Tales of Spider-Man, and I threw those in. It was written by Kurt Busiek with really great art by Pat O'Leaf, I think is how you say it. And so where those kind of fit in between the raindrops of the issues, like I have them stored even with, they're kind of like categorized with the issues of Spider-Man that they corresponded with. Avengers, X-Men in the 60s. When Marvel Team Up started, I started reading Marvel Team Up. When Defenders started, I started reading Defenders. When Marvel 2-in-1 started up, I added Spectacular Spider-Man. When Miss Marvel showed up, 70s, I read that whole run. I've read that before in my like all-encompassing X-Men thing, because to me, like, Carol's like X-Men adjacent. She's like connected enough to Rogue, and like Deathbird shows up in that. Mystique first appears in that, so it's heavily tied in with the X-Men. So I was like, so I've read that a couple times. Champions, I got Champions years back because obviously Angel and Iceman are members of the Champions. So, and that's why I wound up getting Defenders too, is because like Defenders around issue 104 turned into like like stays the Defenders for a little bit, eventually becomes the New Defenders. But at 104 is when Angel Beast and Iceman joined the team. So before I started reading X-Men, I read Champions, then Defenders, and then that led into X Factor to kind of keep an idea of where those X-Men characters were. I threw in Iron Man at issue 98 because I have a run from 98 to 279, so that puts me at 1992. Cap, I have smatterings of issues in the early run of that, but then my run of it starts when Cap moves out of Avengers Mansion and moves into a brownstone and starts dating Bernie Rosenthal. I don't know why that was my choice of like where I'm going to pick up Captain America. It's like right before the Byrne run. Byrne's my favorite artist, so I always had the Byrne run of Cap, but then was reading those and was like, this is great. It was kind of a little bit of time period where I was disillusioned with some stuff and was like, I should be putting my money towards back issues, and so I was just filling out runs at like Knights of Columbus halls and like little dirt cons around my area. I've been reading Daredevil. My run of Daredevil starts with Ben Urich's first appearance. I'm like, that's going to be my starting point for Daredevil. So that's issue 143, and I have that until 305, like full. So that puts me at 92 then, and I can piece together stuff after that. Spider-Woman, I got the Claremont era because Claremont's my favorite writer. Obviously, I'm a big X-Men guy, so I was like, I'll read anything he writes. So I picked up the Spider-Woman issues of those, and Moon Knight. And Moon Knight, I wound up it wasn't really my cup of tea, so I sort of bottomed out on that one and wound up selling that series off. But what I'm trying to say is, I think what I'm going to do is, along with the new issues on Wednesday, what I'll do is like a classic thing where I will go through, like, if I was a kid riding up to a shop in January of 1982, this is what I would have gotten. And I'll just do some classic reviews and show like what I have from my collection of those. And I figured since this is like my channel, BaseMint Comics, and it's mostly so I can just like get out my history of comics and share my experience of being a fan, I would start with October 81 because that's the month I was born. And so I will move forward from there. And it kind of worked out because that's kind of where I'm at in my own personal reread. And obviously there is fantastic stuff that came before then. So I'm sure there will be like supplemental videos kind of thrown in between, because there's going to be stuff that I want to talk about from like the eras before 1981. But I figured that was it's a good jumping on point. It doesn't disrupt what I've been doing just for the channel. It'll give me an opportunity to throw in some really classic stuff, as well as kind of like a lot of this stuff. Like I said, when I first started collecting, my thing was X-Men. And if like X-Men characters appeared in another book, I'd pick that book up. But like as a kid, getting allowance from my parents or buying comics with the money that I got from my little like neighborhood lawn business could only afford so much. So, I wasn't like getting into that. All that stuff sort of came later, so it'll be interesting to kind of read a lot of the Marvel Universe for the first time and talk about it pretty fresh, even though some of the stuff is, it's going to be 43 years old. But some of it's the first time I've ever read through it, and, big continuity fan. So I thought that would be fun. At least it's going to be fun for me. And I don't know, there's probably not a huge, I don't know if there's a lot of people searching out new reviews of stuff from 43 years ago, but that's going to be the angle that I work with from here, along with going to shows and like kind of what I did in the last video of like what I picked up, just sort of that thing, but kind of just going along with my journey. So I appreciate anybody that's watching. It's, I'm sure, been mostly friends and family at the moment. And if it stays that way, that's cool too. I'm happy with that. Like I said, I'm just trying to put I love comics, and I know that the internet loves to be negative, and I am not that, and I think that I just want to put a little bit of positivity about something that I have loved for a very long time in my life. So thanks for watching, and thanks for taking this ride with us. Hopefully I will see you next week, and hopefully next week's will be on a Wednesday. And like I said, if there's anything like not new comics, I'll toss that up on different days of the week or whatever, but that's where we're at. So thanks again. You know, I appreciate it. And like I said, and I'm saying it again, thanks for taking this ride with us.